Yo, 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 what's going on, everyone? It's Ricky Venters and Marlon Madden, and we're back with you for another episode of the Success Journey Show. What's going on, Marlon? How you doing today?
Well, I'm doing great, Rick. I think, first of all, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. I'm using one of our mics that we got for our interview. I know we got to get yours up and running. We'll get it up for next week. But yeah, dude, I'm doing great, man. Can't complain. What's up with you, man?
Well, I'm winding down for what I'm going to be my job, and I'm stepping into another job. It's exciting. I don't know. We talked about this the other week. I don't get too hyped for things until I'm there. I'm kind of like, I'm just it's not that I'm not appreciative, but I'm just like, okay, when I get there, I'll see what it is. I don't try to say, oh man, this job, I'm going to go there, I'm going to conquer the world, I'm going to save the world. And then you get there and you find out I'm just making coffee. Yeah. Right. So, I don't want it to be one of those, but I'm really excited about this show, Rick. I want to tell people you're going to start listening and you're probably going to get lost a little bit, because if you don't understand the world of finance, or if you think you understand the world of finance, and then what I want you to do is actually take down some of the jargon, understand what we're talking about, and then go research and then try to implement some of the things that you hear today. Yeah. And I'm not talking, you don't have to do it on a higher level. You could just start on the lower level and start to do that in order to build up yourself to wherever you want to be, depending on the model of how you want to live. You know?
And it's crazy, when we talk about journeys, my last role at Johns Hopkins is when I got introduced to a lot of this stuff. And I would have never known about IPOs, in depth the way I know it now. Yeah. Options, bear puts, all that kind of stuff, company formation. Just the list goes on with the things that I was able to learn just taking risks. As you hear our guests say, some people take risk and take opportunities that you don't know where it's going to lead, but it's just a great opportunity. And just the knowledge base that I have now because of that, right? And the network that I have because of that. So yeah, this is going to be a phenomenal show. We're not going to take much of your time. We're going to let you guys get right into it with our guest today. So without further ado, we're going to jump into that next segment. Yo, Jay, hit him with the intro.
Welcome to the Success Journey Show. Let's travel together through the lives of individuals on the road to success.
All right, travelers. All right. We are here at our favorite segment of the show. Marlon and I, we could talk for hours and just kind of bore you guys with what's going on in our lives. But man, we love just to have this moment to bring on a guest and just get life from their perspective, man. We have phenomenal opportunity to talk to people from all around the world. And today, man, we have the privilege of talking to Aaron Rubin. Aaron, thanks so much for joining the Success Journey Show. What's going on, man? How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. And I love that you call everyone travelers, because that's what we're all doing. Yeah. We're trying to find our way, and sometimes there's a path for it, and sometimes you got to make your own. And I love that. Love that thought.
Thank you. Hey, our guests, our travelers would be upset, because I know all of them are seeing your name, and just like when we did the thing, they want to say Aaron just the same.
Yeah,
hey,
yeah.
Bring back that guy, man. Bring back our guy, Aaron, man. Bring him back on the show.
Yeah. No, what a great bit. But it was Key and Peele, right? I'm not making that up?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Anyway, no, hilarious. And my middle child just loves to rub that in and tell it to strangers. And anyway, but yeah, it's been great. Fatherhood thing and the work and as you guys know, it's always that balance.
Oh yeah.
You try to live it, but things get in the way. So
yeah.
But glad to be on here, and I know you said you guys can talk for hours, so can I. So now it'll be my turn. It'll be my turn to bore your fellow travelers. My journey's taking me into the world of pre-IPO stock options, and so I think I'd say, I started in the industry about, 13, 14 years ago. And, we were sort of that average story of, wealth advisor. Oh yeah. We're going to help widows and orphans, and, you got a pulse and you got a couple $100,000, come see us. And it got to the point, I was a few years in, and once I finally figured out, how everything worked, and I felt really comfortable, I started saying that sort of that same line that every other advisor says, when you're in a networking setting, or when you're just talking with people. And I realized that I was not compelling to myself. And I thought, if I don't find that interesting, and if I don't find a passion there, no one else is finding a passion. No one else is gonna follow me if I don't feel that way. And I kind of I went soul searching a little bit, and I tried finding that right niche. And eventually, I think the right niche found me, or / us as a firm. One of my other partners, Jason, phenomenal guy. He got a bunch of Zoom clients right before they went public, preparing to go public, from an attorney that we work with, and we had, I have a background as a CPA, and our firm has some tax people in-house. At that time, we didn't have very many. We were actually winding down the tax practice when it happened. But we started needing to give these people some tax advice, and they were so grateful. And one person turned into 2 people, turned into 4 people. All of a sudden, we had 5 people at Zoom without really even trying. And we said, well, okay, time out. This whole thing where we're not going to do the tax anymore, that's got to change. We need to dedicate ourselves to doing that. And so we went out and we went on a journey ourselves, trying to find the right tax person to integrate with. And all the while, we were looking at it. We said, we do this really well. We're good at this. This is our jam. And so I stopped doing my whole pitch of, I'm an advisor and I help people retire, or whatever it might be, or transition, or you've heard it all before, and I'm sure your travelers have many times. And I started saying, hey, I help people, with pre-IPO stock make really good decisions so they can keep money for themselves, so they can give it to charity, so they can give it to their kids, they can do good in the world. And I thought to myself, this is compelling. This is that sounds right to me. It changed the whole way, I thought about what I did. And there's a little bit of, trepidation, when you go out and you completely change your pitch to people you've been talking to for years, and they're looking at you. But if you repeat it enough times, and if you believe it yourself, it's all going to work out. And sure enough, we're getting more referrals than we ever had before. I mean, because, when you go out and you tell people what it is you're doing and what it is you look for, when they see it, they think of you. Mm-hmm. So when people hear, I started a new job, or I started this tech company, and I'm getting all these options, and they immediately think of me, and they're like, oh, you need to talk to Aaron or Jason or whoever it is. You need this is the firm you need. And of course, we still get all the other referrals too. That didn't stop. But having a real compelling, niche that you believe in, that was huge. And I've loved it ever since.
Aaron, what man, there are a lot of things we're going to break down in this, because a lot of people, I'm not going to assume that they know what pre-IPO or IPO is. I'm not even going to assume they even know the construct of how do you even position yourself to be able to use your services in terms of options and things of that nature. So we're going to talk about that. But even before we even go into those kind of details, I want to get a better sense from you as to what kind of led you down that road of finance. What was that draw for you? You said you're an accountant as well, CPA as well. Was it numbers? You're a numbers guy. you're the one that always had money when everyone was kids, and what was it that drew you to that area?
Yeah, charging people a point a week for any loans. No, I'm kidding. It's funny. So when I was a little kid, like first grade, I had an assignment at school, and it was you had to clip a classified ad out of a newspaper for a job and describe why you wanted to do that job. And so I scrounged around the newspaper, and I came upon accountant. Now I had no idea what an accountant was. I knew my dad was an accountant, so I was like, all right, I got to get this assignment done. So I'm going to say that I'm going to be an accountant because my dad's an accountant, and just get the assignment over with. And, anyway, easy way out. But I did that, but in my heart, I was like, I'm never going to be an accountant. There's no way I'm going to be like my dad and be an accountant. No chance. And so I spent my entire life trying to not be an accountant from there on out. And, I was good at math, but I mean, what people I think a lot don't realize is that math and accounting are not related very much at all.
No, you're right.
If you've taken an accounting class, what you know is that accounting is much more like a foreign language than anything else. But so I was like, okay, so I went off to college and was trying to find my major, and I came across a major that had economics as part of it, and I was like, okay, I'm not an accountant, and I was also getting a dual degree in Spanish. And so I went to Spain, studied my junior year, and it was a great experience. I came back my second semester junior year, and I needed to take one more economics class to round out this other major I was doing. And I said, okay, what can I do? And I was also on the track team at the time, so I had a schedule, that I had to try to follow, for practice. And so I said, okay, well, the one class that is available that fits the bill that I need, it's accounting. And so, and I was like, all right, I'll take an accounting class, whatever, And so I take this accounting class, and I leave after the first day, and I'm like, I want to be an accountant.
Wow.
And so like that, the end of that week, I went to the registrar's office and I changed my major, my second semester junior year, and I was like, I'm an accounting major, like that. Wow. So that sort of kicked it off. And so and I always, I grew up, in, for the most part in the 80s and 90s. And LA Law was always like huge. Yeah. I don't know how old you two are, but
90s. Yep.
All right. And oh my, so like ever since LA Law, I knew I was going to be a lawyer because of LA Law, and so I applied to law school. I got in miraculously enough, and so I graduated, ended up in law school, and my second semester year, I split my summer because that's the second year of law school. Again, I don't know, I don't want to bore all your travelers, but that is that's the pivotal summer, right? That's where you go, you work, and hopefully, and the whole idea is that somebody's going to give you a job, right? That's how that's going to work. And so, I ended up I split my summer, so I did two different jobs. One, I worked in the Air Force, and the second one, I worked at Deloitte, an international accounting firm, in sales and use tax.
Yeah. And
after spending, a month in sales and use tax, I said, no way in hell am I going in sales and use tax. It was, I'll tell. I'm not going to name names because but I think no one's going to figure this person out. But I had a mentor, while at Deloitte, and he and I left the office to go run some errand together. And he looked at me. He said, "This is the worst job ever." And like this was my mentor, right? This is my mentor, and I'm thinking, oh, I am not working here. I know that. And so I finagled my way into getting a job within Deloitte, but in a different department. Moved out to California. But in sort of all that hubbub, I met my wife. Wow. And so and her dad was in the wealth management space. And so he said to me after we got married, hey, if you're interested, you could, join my practice one day, soon, and I was like, oh, okay, that sounds good. I mean, because in the Bay Area, he's got has had a beautiful house in the Bay Area. He golfed like 3 days a week, and I'm thinking, you know what? I could do worse than this.
Yeah, I like that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And it had the additional advantage of being right in my wheelhouse, right? Because he's also a CPA, did tax work. I did tax work. I mean, like everything just meshed perfectly. The only problem we eventually had was 2008. And I was supposed to join him in 2008, and that didn't happen because the world melted down for a little bit. Yeah. But I did eventually join him in latter half of 2009, and that's how I got into it. So really roundabout. My mom, to this day still asks me when I'm going to be a real lawyer. I can't imagine you two have Jewish mothers, but let me tell you. That's how it goes. Thankfully, my sister is a lawyer as well.
Okay.
She's a real lawyer. She reviews contracts. She reviews contracts at Baxter, actually. She's really good at it. And but again, I think for me, law school /life /sports /whatever, I think taught me that the most important thing you can be in this world is pragmatic. Right. You have to look at your opportunities. And even though the opportunity might not look like you thought it was going to look, you take that calculated risk and you say, okay, you know what, this is going to work out. And sometimes you win and sometimes you lose.
You're so
right. Because I had a friend, a really great friend whose his dad started a business, and he went to work for his dad's business and worked his butt off for 8 years, and the business just never took off. And he had to start over again, and it stinks, so again, it's about, but you got to assess the situation. Hopefully you get it right.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, so you piqued my interest as a CPA in 2008, because of course you have clients that, in 2004, 2005, you're flourishing. These guys are flourishing. They're doing all this different stuff. They're using whatever is available to them to make money. And then all of a sudden 2008 happened. As a CPA, what was how were you navigating through that whole thing right there?
It was tough time. So the firm that I was with in 2008, I left Deloitte after a year. I can tell you all about that experience if you really want me to, but it's not pretty. So I left after a year, and I went to a regional accounting firm, which was a way better fit for me. And they had a lot of real estate clients, and people were freaking out, layoffs at accounting firms don't happen. They just don't, because everyone always needs accounting help or tax help. But they laid off, I have to think it must have been as a percentage 8 to 10% of the people. So I mean, it was definitely a scary time. At that point, I was still a staff accountant. So I didn't have a ton of interaction with people, but my father-in-law, who I was supposed to be working with, at that time, I definitely got to see him in action, and a lot of sleepless nights, for him, and and it was crazy scary back in 2008, as you all remember. And him waking up at 2 a.m. to see what's happening in the Asian markets. Not that you can do anything, right? But when you feel that powerless, and you worry about your clients too, and that's what I think I eventually came to understand of all of his why he was so scared was not for himself, right? It was for your clients, because your clients rely on you, and they rely on their money, and you're supposed to be looking out for them, and if something happens, you feel responsible. So, but yeah, there were a lot of freaking out, layoffs in the accounting industry, and real estate was obviously in the tank. And for Silicon Valley, it was in the tank, which is to say prices leveled off. But there were certainly, for our clients that had real estate in California. Again, I don't know how great your California, Northern California geography is, but there's the exurbs, right, of the Bay Area, where you're pretty darn close to the country, and those prices, down 50%. Those people had some tough times, and we had family members who, they were trying to live the American dream. They wanted the house, and so the only way they can get their house in the Bay Area was to move out to the exurbs and get some mortgage, and then when the whole thing came tumbling down, we knew a lot of people that lost houses, because they were underwater, and anyway, but it was not a fun time, and there were also issues with if you default on your mortgage and then it's forgiven, that's now income, and now you have tax problems on top of it. So it gets really complicated really quick.
Man, that's crazy, man. I just seeing the things from that perspective, and growing through that in your career. Give me a sense of how you were feeling. I know you said you transitioned from Deloitte, and now with an accounting agency. But what were you thinking for yourself personally? Like, hey, man, oh man, what's
I was really happy to have a job. Yeah. So I was a law. I passed the bar and I did all that good stuff, and I was in the middle of passing my CPA exam when I left Deloitte. But I was getting paid. And I wasn't getting paid a lawyer's sum at Deloitte, but I was getting paid like a pretty well paid accountant's salary at Deloitte, and I convinced the new firm to pay me that salary. So I was definitely the most expensive, tax staff person they had. And all I thought was, oh my gosh, they've got to be thinking about firing me because I'm so freaking expensive. So that was at that point it was self-preservation. Can I not get fired, please, or not laid off? Because it was, at that point I didn't have kids yet, but I did have a mortgage, and it was, we all have responsibilities. So.
Yeah, I remember that time too. I was in a similar boat around 2008, 2009, transitioning jobs, right before the crash, and being a new guy at the new place, and thank God, man, the company was able to, just kind of stay even kill through the whole thing. But you're thinking about the same thing. You're like, oh man, like I'm getting my career started up. I don't know if I'm not financially where I want to be because I'm getting there, but I'm still in that building part, right? And then building it up. So it definitely resonates with me, taking us back to that time. So that was a good question, Marlon, just to really think about the 2008, 2009, that recession. And I know you were trying to lead it up to something else with that question, Marlon. Go ahead.
Yeah, funny enough, Rick, you guys just mentioned where you guys were at 2008. I was such in a bubble.
Yeah, you were in Kuwait, weren't you? Or where?
I was in Afghanistan, 2008. Yeah, 2008, 2009. I was in Afghanistan. Yeah, so it's not even the bubble, is that I didn't even understand that when people were talking about crashing, I was like, at that time, the military was still, we were just coming out of a blank check kind of idea. Because Obama just came and then they said, hey, we got to check. We got to make sure that all the money that we've been spending comes on the books. Because before that, it was just funds that were just, hey, if you needed it for war, you got it. You know what I'm saying? So we were out in that kind of bubble. Then I was getting paid on the 1st and the 15th. We're in the height of war, so my job is secured. They're actually plussing up to get more guys in the military, more men and women in the military. So I was just in a bubble to myself. I bought my second home, right? And I'm thinking to myself, like, oh man, this is great, man. These houses are cheap. What is going on here? Why am I getting this $300 and something thousand house for $150,000? Oh, that's cool. right? So I was just in the whole bubble, and the VA is just like, yeah, we'll fund you.
Oh my gosh! Wow. Jeez,
so
that's how you
so
do
to
it.
me, when somebody is like, oh, I couldn't get it was hard to get a mortgage and stuff like that. It was not on my end. So I was in a different kind of, yeah, I was in another world just even looking at it. And I had to come back and actually figure out what happened in 2008, like 2009, 2010, when I got getting more into real estate. I had to look back and I was like, oh, that's what was happening. That's crazy. And then, so yeah, it's crazy. But like you said, Rick, I was leading up to all that because, so what do you think? Everybody's trying to, not everybody, a lot of people that don't understand what really happened in 2008, trying to compare what's happening now to 2008. Oh, the bubble's going to pop, da, 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 da. What is your hypothesis for people that's going to take any kind of information? You have a pen down. You cannot hold him liable for any advice that you take and then you run. You cannot hold the Success Journey Show liable for any kind of financial move you make. We're putting that out there. But what's your hypothesis on what's going on now versus what's happening to what happened in 2008?
It's definitely so, it's different. And for those, listening in the future, hello from the past, but the NASDAQ was down like 5% today. So
correct,
crazy down. I mean, tech's just been slaughtered.
Yes,
it's a different place. I've heard someone say something to the effect of, history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. And that's somewhat true. And sometimes it doesn't rhyme with the part of history you think. So, 2008 was about, banks getting overextended and credit rating. I'll get there at some point. Yeah, credit rating agencies, really dropping the ball for everyone and really getting, talk about creative accounting. And then, when the lid blew off that, everyone realized that, all of these different supposedly secure loans were no good. And it really threw everything in a frenzy. And, I think today, we're looking at something different than that. Certainly, we're not having that financial meltdown that we did before where all cash is seizing up. That's not really the problem. I think that today we've got two issues. And the first is, because price, like right now, right, inflation's the greatest it's been in 40 years, our lifetime, yep, as we sit on this call. And there's two reasons for inflation, right? A price is set by two things, right? It's set by supply, it's set by demand. And we have a supply problem. Yep. Right now, still, right? So our minivan right now, it's got close to 150,000 miles on it. It's starting to have some real problems, and we're looking at it and we're saying, do we really want to have this car because it's in the shop and I just spent $1,400, getting some part for it. I mean, and I'm just like, man, if the transmission goes out, I'm going to be out another $2,000. Anyway, so we're like, okay, we know it's tough getting a new car. Let's see like how bad it is. Answer is bad, real bad, bad. And again, that's in large part due to the microchip shortage and that affects all sectors. And so we have a supply problem, not enough supply. There's also a demand problem. There's lots of demand because lots of people have lots of cash because it's been so good for the last several years. Now, 2020 and the COVID thing, was a blip, but so you have a lot of demand and a low supply. You're of course going to get higher prices. And so I think the Fed can do what it wants to do with the interest rate. I think interest rates shouldn't be at basement levels forever. But you can keep raising the interest rate, but it's but you're not going to solve the other problem. Well, eventually people spend all their money and they won't have money to spend. So price will come down, but that's usually not the way you want to do it. But eventually, the supply thing has to shake out. I don't know when, I don't know how. Again, part of the issue is that a lot of the countries in the Far East are still very COVID, I'll say COVID obsessed, and hopefully I don't offend any of your travelers, and so a lot of them, they still haven't got production back up, and we live in a global economy. So now, so if China sneezes, there's a problem. Correct. There's a cold coming for everybody. And that's what we're seeing. And then, you tack on, a little war in the eastern, part of Europe, and a response from the West, of, all right, we're going to, essentially embargo Russian oil. Okay, well, now you really have some problems, with rising prices, because again, now you've limited supply more. And so, I can't tell you how many people I've talked to. I mean, almost everybody I talk to is saying, "Oh yeah, this summer we're going out. We're either how many people are going to Europe that I've talked to? Tons. How many, or they're going across country, and so they're planning on spending a lot of money, and so again, there's more demand for that fuel, and of course, fuel being, oil is not necessarily fuel, but it has to do with futures contracts, and I mean it's a very complex web. So what we're looking at now is we have a supply problem with a demand problem, and that's leading to a lot higher prices. And so as a result, the Fed's trying to rein things in. However, if the Fed's trying to rein things in and Congress is still handing out money, you have a disconnect there. So the Fed is basically combating Congress, because they have their own set of motives. And so you have this really, really weird spot. And so how does it resolve? I don't know. I mean, Russia, as I've been reading, in various places, Russia's doing pretty well, I guess, right now, in their war. But even if they, win the war, whatever that means, I don't think the embargoes are going away. I think people are pretty ticked at Putin, and I think Putin's backed himself into a corner. And so again, the fuel prices are going to keep on going up. Will the Fed, and I read something the other day that Fed's like, oh my gosh, inflation's even higher than we thought it was. Okay, we're going to keep on boosting, rates. Again, I just don't know how much control they have over inflation.
Yeah.
And the question is I don't know if it's hubris or not. But people who think they can modify things and change the whole system. It just doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
The Fed's really, in my opinion, the Fed was really meant as a backup to banks, right? Yeah. So if a bank's going to fail, the government's going to step in. I know it's FDIC as opposed to the Fed, but there's going to be overnight lending to banks. The government's going to provide that, and obviously that rate ends up being super important. But there's other forces. There are other forces out there, and so I'm not. I think it's very different than 2008. It may end up being more protracted, to be honest, because there's so many factors, across the world and fundamentally that, it may be a little bit. I think ultimately, inflation is usually not that big of a problem, generally speaking, for the market. If you look at Brazil in the 90s and the 2000s, they had insane inflation. In Brazil. But if you looked at the real return, they had phenomenal real return. So, again, inflation doesn't have to kill, your market. It makes it really hard for people, to survive,
the lower people.
Absolutely. Inflation's a tax. That's what it is. It's a tax on the money you've gotten before. And so, when Congress is handing out, all these checks, and they're flooding the system with cash, right? The prices tend to go up because demand has gone up. So again, it acts as a type of taxation.
Thank you for listening to the Success Journey Show. Please follow us on our social media on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook at The Success Journey Show. Also, check out our website at thesuccessjourneyshow.com. Thank you for listening and enjoy the rest of the show.
Man. So, and what I'm getting from you, because this is what I'm thinking. If if people have a lot of cash, which we know a lot of people have a lot of cash because over the last few years, it's been going so well, a lot of cash. So they still need to have somewhere to, you're a CPA, they still need to have somewhere to put that cash. So even if the inflation is where it is, they're still going to spend. So that's why I feel a lot of hedge fund guys, a lot of guys that have a lot of money, don't come for me, guys. I'm not snitching on you, but they're putting their money, a lot of their money in real estate now. So they might buy. I heard of hedge funds buying a whole development, and renting it out because of just having that money that they had to. Look at Warren Buffett in the middle of the pandemic. Warren Buffett, Berkshire and Hathaway had too much money. They were sitting on so much money.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Yeah, and I think that brings me to other thoughts that I've had on my little life. That's brought me to other things that we've been thinking about as a firm. Is that Berkshire Hathaway has a lot of cash. Apple, its stock price got hammered. They're still sitting on hundreds of billions of dollars of cash. I mean, there's so much money that these companies have right now. I mean, it's I don't like to use the word obscene because it has a pretty negative connotation, but my guess is that at some point, while the VCs, not the VCs, while the hedge funds are buying real estate, my guess is you're going to see bigger companies buying up smaller companies. Because what we're going to see, so as interest rates rise, we've seen tech companies on the stock market get hammered, right? Where right now as we speak, we're in bear market territory that's minus 30% from the high. And so what that means is that everything's on sale. And when everything's on sale, people that have cash, they're going to buy. So when we see the stock market, losing value, you can rest assured that the companies that are not on the stock market, the private companies, those pre-IPO companies, their valuations are going to get hammered. Mm-hmm. And if their valuations get hammered, they have a choice to make. One, they can either try to raise more capital, which maybe they do, maybe they don't. They can take on more debt, depending on how if they think they can weather it, or they're going to have to sell themselves at a cheaper price. And so there's going to be bargains out there, for those smaller companies, and I think those bigger companies are going to start snapping them up.
Man, this is a topic that I just could talk about it all night because evaluations of companies, and I have my
talk about that.
Hypothesis on this stuff. Like a lot of these companies that evaluate at whatever $1 billion they're valued for, you run IPOs, and I don't want you to out anybody or put yourself in jeopardy, but some of these guys are not. I'm looking at when let me see, when Uber came out, $40-something a stock. Right now they're down to probably like 21. Lyft was 50-something. Now they're down to 17. You know what I'm saying? So the valuations of the company, I think, in the market previously, I think it was kind of false, or I don't understand how you get the valuation of that company to be where it is.
Yeah.
You can explain that to me better than
Yeah. So I'm happy. So the whole thing of valuations rests on what's called the 409A, which is at least an annual valuation of a company. Now, if they go through a funding round, they have to go through another 409A. So what happens? A valuations expert comes in, and they do this big analysis, and they say, okay, we think your company is worth, $20 a share, or $2 billion, whatever it might be. The crazy part about it, though, is that even though that is the 409A, that's not the market. And there's an entire market out there. We in the industry we call it the secondary market, where people who have illiquid stock, they can sell it to other people who want to buy illiquid stock. And oftentimes, and this might shock you, oftentimes the fair market value of the secondary market is much higher than the 409A valuation. And so you can have a 409A valuation. Again, we had an example of this of a client in January. The 409A of their company, I think, was $25 a share. Someone came in on a tender offer, which is when you go in and you basically go to the company and say, hey, I want to buy a large swath of your business of your stock, but I want to offer it to employees so they can sell it to me. And they were offering 30 plus. for the shares. So I mean, that's not insignificant. So the fair market value of the company, when you read, oh yeah, whatever, let's pull a random company out, Snowflake, was valued. I think they're public now, though. Whatever it is, let's say they were pre-IPO. Snowflake was valued at $2 billion. There's someone out there probably willing to pay more. So I'm telling you, it's super interesting.
Yeah. Talk about. I hate to go back. I just love the aspect of some people that are green, just making sure that they are kind of tracking with us. I don't want to assume that they know what IPO is and all that kind of stuff is. Some people I think GameStop got a lot of people into stocks, and they had no idea what in the world they were doing. They saw the tracking of it. So can you back up a little bit and really start diving into kind of what you do, the people that you work with, or types of people that you work with, organizations, in regards to, hey, you have a company X, you have been presented with options with your company. Talk to people, like, even that breakdown. What does that mean, having options in a company, and then how that grows, the potential of those options, how they translate in the IPO and things of that nature, and how you help your clients do that process.
Yeah. So when you join a company, oftentimes you're issued some sort of stock option. That's the right to buy the stock at a particular price. Now, essentially by law, when you get the option, and they come in essentially two different flavors, and if you want to dive into them, happy to. But usually the fair market value equals what we call the strike price, what you can buy it for at first. So there's really no gain or loss. Now, as the company kind of grows, your stock starts to vest, right? Because they don't give you all the options up front, right? Because they want to keep you in the company. That's the whole point. And so they'll say, oh yeah, we're going to give you, again, I talk to people sometimes, they have millions of shares, stock options, and hey, we're going to give you all these shares, but hey, by the way, it's going to take 4 years for you to get all those shares. Yeah. So, what happens is, they have an option. They are able to buy those shares as they vest. Now, there's things you can do from a tax strategy perspective where you can possibly buy them before they vest. There's my daughter. There's my oldest.
Hey, what's up?
Disappearance.
Yeah, right. There's and you can do what's called an 83B election, and you can buy the stock ahead of time. It can get a little complicated, but you can save yourself a lot of money. But as you're able to buy them, there's a difference, right, between the strike price and the fair market value, that 409A, and there's tax consequences with that. Even when you buy that, not when you sell it, when you buy it, there are tax consequences. And so you buy these shares. Now the problem is that a lot of times if you're a pre-IPO company, you can't sell them readily. There's an entire industry out there dedicated to helping people get money out of those shares, right? So there are lenders out there. They will lend on pre-IPO shares, right? Wow. And they'll give you money. Now it's expensive money, right? I mean, they don't do it out of the kindness of their hearts. So a lot of times our clients, they'll wait to buy their stock options, because if you wait, there's more certainty that you're going to make money on it. But the problem is, the longer you wait, the bigger the tax bill gets. And so eventually what kills people is not the actual buying of the shares. What kills people is the tax. Yeah. And so people don't have the money for the tax. And so they go out to lenders and they say, okay, I want to buy these shares, but I don't have the money. Can you lend me? Sometimes we're talking about tens of millions of dollars. Can you lend me this money? And of course, there's a lender out there. Sure, I'll lend you the money. What's the interest rate? Oh, it's 6%. Oh, 6% doesn't sound too bad. Oh, but we're going to take 10% of your shares. That's common. So you're going to lose 10% of what you bought in transaction costs. And so, and there's this whole world of whether it's the secondary market I had mentioned before, the lending market, or other really complex contracts that come into being. And so all based around that you own stock in a company, which you cannot sell that stock for. And so what are you waiting for? You're waiting for an event to happen, right? You're waiting for an IPO, an initial public offering, which is a whole big process that a company's trying to raise capital, on the market. And there's there's banks behind it, and the banks, kind of try to put a floor in on the price, and there's the IPO day and the underprice. I mean, it gets complicated that way. There's people that go out there. You'll probably all have dealt with. I think that was Snapchat. I'm trying to remember who was the. No, it wasn't Snapchat. It was the company that does the workspace stuff. We work with a way different story, but fascinating one. The one where you Slack.
Oh, Slack. Yeah.
Slack. So Slack didn't do that. So Slack did what was called a direct listing. They said, we don't want the banks. We're just going to go and offer the stock, which you can do. But again, that looks a little different. And then, or a lot of times, these companies, these smaller companies get snapped up by the bigger companies in an acquisition. Yeah. And then sometimes, your pre-IPO company can be purchased by another pre-IPO company, and they swap stocks. So now you've swapped your pre-IPO stock. And then I had a really complicated one that I'm not going to try to explain that one, but they had or what used to be really popular as of like 6 months ago were SPACs.
I was going to ask you about companies that are doing SPACs.
Yeah, SPACs are fascinating beasts unto themselves because it's they call it a blank check company, and that truly it is a blank check company.
Correct.
You go out, you raise a bunch of money, and you're like, all right, I'm going to buy something someday. Really, when? I don't know, sometime in the next 2 years. What you going to buy? I can't tell you, or else it wouldn't qualify as a SPAC. Okay, and people put their money in, and the SPACs get really, really fascinating when you start talking about, because hedge funds will use SPACs with the intention of never buying the stock. I mean, because
that's even crazy to me. That's wow.
Because what happens is that so SPACs, and I don't want to belabor SPACs too much, but SPACs they have 2 years to complete. If they don't complete in 2 years, they have to return everybody's money plus interest. And so and the interest rate is typically better than like the interest rate you get at a bank. So and when the SPAC goes to consummate, when they actually go to buy the shares or buy the company, they have to give people the option to get out with interest. And so what hedge funds were doing is they were piling bunches of money in these SPACs, and right before they would get their acquisition, they'd pull out to get the interest. So you'd be like, well, then how do they buy these companies? That's a good question. They use private equity. So private equity comes in and says, all right, we'll lend you the money, because of course there's always someone willing to lend you money. The question is, how expensive is it going to be? And so I'm telling you, the whole thing was crazy. And SPACs, had their heyday, but recently there was an article in the Wall Street Journal where a bunch of SPACs, like 20 plus SPACs, were saying, hey, we don't think we're going to be in business, soon.
It's a hard model to keep, right? I would think so.
Yeah, because a lot of times when these companies were SPACing with other companies, they would get pre-revenue companies. So companies, before they even sold anything, they were getting taken public essentially, and you can't. That doesn't work. You're not making any money. That doesn't work. And so it's just there's SPACs have since kind of decreased in popularity, but the IPO is still out there. Not as many IPOs happening now.
I see that. Yep.
No, it's a bear market, and no one wants to take their company out in a bear market. So everyone's just sort of hanging tight.
Wow. Eric, what I'm hearing from all that you're saying is that the average, I wouldn't even say the average, probably 80% of Americans do not understand how money works. Mm-hmm. They think they go to work, collect a paycheck, they go out, they put it in the bank, they save, they have their 401k, and they try to maneuver themselves to there until they reach 65. That's how they think money works. And then that same person will talk to you about generational wealth, right? which cannot happen in their construct of what they think finance is that there's a whole nother world that the company that they work for actually exists in. And they don't understand that world. And if you don't understand that world, you're going to be at that level that you'll never be able to get out the, I don't know if you ever played, what's that, Rat Race? What's it called, Rick? Cash Flow.
Cash Flow, yeah.
Cash Flow from Kiyosaki.
Oh, okay.
Oh, you gotta get that for the.
Oh, you got to play that. It's like Monopoly on steroids.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's really good.
All right.
I'll
check that.
Well, we're not getting sponsored by Robert Kiyosaki, but definitely it's okay we mentioned it.
Yeah, well, and you know, and that world is not wrong to do. You know, I'd say, you know, I know quite a bit of, you know, even family members, you know, who just they want to make it 65. They want to, you know, simplify their lives as much as possible so they can, you know, essentially live on as much Social Security as they can, and that's what they want to do, you know, and you know it's a model, you know, and you know, and look, you know, fellow travelers, right? I mean, sometimes if that's the path you want to be on, that's, you know, it's a choice, you know, and I never berate anyone for that choice. It's, you know, it's a far simpler way to handle it than you know, probably what us are doing here, but or people listen to the podcast. But yeah, it's you know, something. But yeah, if you're, you know, again, if you're trying to really create, you know, a lot of wealth, it's done with equity. It's always been done with equity. And you know, again, there's a lot of risk. There's a lot of reward.
Explain that for us, Aaron. When you say it's done with equity, explain that to the travelers, because a lot of people don't understand. I've been shocked. Okay, explain that to the travelers.
Sure. So equity is the value of a business, right? Or house, right? I mean, it could be any number of things. Equity is there's lots of equity everywhere. You know, when I talk about equity, and I talk about asset equity, you know, in terms of whether it's real estate or whether it's a business. But for people that start their own business, you know, that value of that business, you know, that's where a lot of, you know, real wealth comes from. And you know, and some people are entrepreneurs and they start businesses and they try to get them, you know, to be public. But I mean, I know a bunch of people, they own lumber yards, you know, but they bought the land underneath the lumber yard too. So when you value the lumber yard plus the land, they were at $15 million.
Yeah,
it's not a bad payday.
No,
you know, I mean, look, I mean, if you're the CEO, if you're Mark Zuckerberg, right? I mean, you know, whatever, how many tens of millions of dollars doesn't make a difference to you. But I mean, for your average person, if you have $15 million, you know, you're going to set yourself up for success, obviously. Yep. But you know, you can make that generational impact. And so, you know, it's building that equity, you know, that really, you know, that's what gets you, you know, to those higher levels. And you know, to the valuation, when we talk about valuation, right? When people start these companies that in their seed round, they put $5,000 in the company, you know, and then, you know, and it goes really well. And then all of a sudden, you know, they're $5,000, you know, essentially in equity, because it's not, you can't do anything with it yet. All of a sudden that's $50,000. And you can get this cumulative effect, you know, when you're running this business, when the valuations grow, and that's, I mean, that it's life changing, it's generational changing. So, you know, and the same thing in real estate, right? You know, Marlon, you I know you have at least 2 houses. You probably have more at this point.
Yes,
you know, but look at what you can accomplish with that equity, you know, and then you take that equity, you add leverage on top of it, you add debt on top of it, you know, all of a sudden your equities, you know, you have that multiplier effect. But it all starts with the equity. It all starts there.
You said something right there that a lot of people don't even, I'm telling you this conversation. You said you take equity, leverage yourself, put debt on top of it to exceed, right? Yeah. And right now they're like, put debt on top of my equity and do what is he talking about? And I've been telling a lot of people, because what happens right now, I'm in the real estate world. So in the real estate world, what's happening right now, a lot of people with a lot of equity in their house because the valuation of the house have gone skyrocketing.
Yeah.
But what happened is they're scared to take that equity out and use it as leverage to gain, because buying another house is debt, right? But it's great debt, because now if you buy it and that house gains equity again, then you could use that for leverage. So a lot of people,
Marlon, it's cash on cash return. That's what it's about.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
But I love this, Aaron, man. It's like so Marlon and I, and let me stop for a second. All right. Usually I interject here and pull the travelers back in and is make sure that, hey, they're tracking with us, that no one, if they need a sip from their canteen, go ahead and open up the canteen and, take a sip of water, whatever it is. Right. But guys, I love this conversation. We got a chance to talk with Aaron here today, and a lot of things. I'm just excited because a lot of things that Marlon, me, and you, we talk about on a regular basis, are surfacing in this conversation without us even knowing that it was going to surface this way, right? One is affirmation of just thought process, being in the right environment, thinking about things in different ways. Because not everyone thinks like this. But then also it's a testament to process, right? And now everyone here is on a journey. And some people want their journey to be a mile. Some people want the 20-miler. Some people do the marathon, whatever it may be, the 26 miles. Some people travel for days, months. But it's all going to be different. Now, when you're talking about IPO and all that kind of stuff does not happen in a matter of a couple of years. I mean, that takes time. That takes an amazing idea, amazing company to grow it up, get some maturity, have some value, and then be able to transition to this whole IPO stage. But what I'm loving here is being patient in that process and working that process and going to that process and committing to that system, understanding that it is a process, that the reward on the other side is so much greater, right? And it will not just greater, but it'll set you up to do even greater things. Aaron, you brought back to the beginning and said, hey, I'm helping you in your journey with this IPO thing so that you can set up and be able to do other things on the other side of it, right? I'm working with helping with your families, kill debt, whatever it may be, build legacies for your kids, pay college. I don't know, whatever people want to do, right? But it takes time to get there, right? And talk about just that, the respect of time to this process in order to really reap the rewards that you want to receive in life.
Yeah, I think part of it is where you fall in the hierarchy of the company, right? If you're a founder, I'm telling you, I have such respect. I've spoken with bunches of founders. I have great respect for those guys. I mean, because they're, first of all, they're ever entrepreneurs, and you want to know what? They failed a bunch. They failed more than they succeeded, for sure. And eventually they got the right idea with the right team, with the right capital, and it came through for them. But and for those guys, right, that patience is insanely important, because you're going to work, you're not going to get paid anything, and you're going to work your butt off, and it's your life's going to be gone, and that's one model. And the next model is the people that come in after that. You have the entrepreneurs, and then you have the people that fill in after, the early employees, and they don't have to be quite as patient, typically as that founder does. Because at least in Silicon Valley, everyone's looking to move companies within 2 to 4 years because it's a vesting thing, right? So because and unless things are going really well, and then people say, oh, maybe I'll stick around for a little bit longer because I'll get more options, I'll get whatever it might be. So again, you need to have that patience. And in Silicon Valley, there are people that they will go from startup to startup, and it won't hit, and then maybe one day they get one, and they get, you know. But and what we say in our business is, you know, you can hit doubles, triples, and singles, doubles, triples, home runs, you know, and you know maybe they're hitting doubles every so often. That's not bad, you know. You know, but if you want to hit the home run, you're going to take on a significant amount of risk, right? Because the company might not make it, you know. You know, I told you my friend, you know, he worked for 8 years with his little small business. He just left with a mountain of debt. That's all he got, you know, when he left. And you know, and that happens. You know, which is why we have a bankruptcy system in the U.S., which I think is one of the best in the world. But you know, again, if you're starting off early, and the earlier you start, the more patience you have to have. You know, but the more reward you're going to get, assuming you calculated your risk reward correctly. And you know, you're not going to know for a long time. So you know, again, the more patient you are, the better off you're going to be.
Yeah, love it. Well, travelers, Marley, have any other questions, man? I know you had some.
Great. I could go.
I know.
Aaron, I could talk to you all day, because I like, a lot of people are the people that are just in a position, and all they do is they pontificate and come out on the airways and say, hey, this is what's going to happen in the market tomorrow, based on their. But when you have somebody that's actually working in the mixings, that's why I like to talk to people that are actually doing real estate. I like to talk to people that are actually into wealth building, and also building up people's IPOs and stuff like that. So your information is not out of the textbook of what should happen. It's the practical side of it. So that's why I could talk to you all day, all night right now, because this is my world that I love to talk about. Unfortunately, Arch, we understand that people have a short sense of time.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, and I know we're going to wrap up, but I will say this. I am really excited that where the market is right now, because I think there's so much. I think there's so much opportunity right now, and the people that I'm talking to that have stock options, I'm telling you, the 409As, which we talked about before, they happen annually. I have a feeling they're be going down by an awful lot. And so if your 409As going down, now is the time to buy those shares. Assuming you still believe in your company. Now, if you don't believe in it, don't buy it. But if you think your company was solid before and it's still solid, and you can get if you can get for a cheaper price, go do it. Save yourself some taxes. So yeah, a lot of opportunity right now. So again, I'm always excited about it. And then if you have accounts that are, you know, in taxable accounts, like where you get taxed on the dividends and interest. Now, if you have capital losses or unrealized losses, go realize them. You know, why not? You know, go help yourself on your tax return. I did that a month ago. I did it a month ago where I sold a bunch of clients, you know, that were in loss positions, got a bunch of losses on their tax returns. 30 days later, and there were more losses. I keep taking them. I'll keep getting the tax. I'll keep on the tax assets as long as I can. You know, it doesn't matter to me. So again, just opportunity.
Two questions, Rick. This is not going to go hard. First of all, it's Twitter and I can't understand. So Elon Musk wanted to, if he goes through with it, because you know it sounds like it's shaky. I don't know, but so if he takes it and he puts it private, how does that benefit him?
Well, how is it going to benefit him? So what he has to be thinking. No, what he has to be thinking. I know what Elon Musk is thinking. You know what? If he goes, if he believes in the transaction, and I don't know if he really does, to be honest with you. But if he really does believe in the transaction, what his hope is he's going to pick up and he's such so much gamesmanship goes into Elon Musk. So you know he could be trying to drive down the price of Twitter so he can renegotiate contract. I mean, like
correct. Yeah, I think that's what it is right now.
It absolutely could be, or he could be pulling what he did with Bitcoin, where that was ridiculous.
He just pulled down, and then he went to Ethereum. It was the Ethereum, and then he went to whatever coin he went after to try to boost that coin up.
Yeah,
and then he jumped out of that.
Yeah, well, and you know, it was kind of funny, and I'm not going to claim anything because I don't know anything, and I'm not with the SEC. But I mean, it is kind of strange that like earnings are about to come out or about to close, and then he announces the whole Bitcoin thing, and he's holding and Tesla's holding a lot of Bitcoin. It goes skyrocketing. Books close. He's like, I'm not going to do it, and he sells out, and then the whole thing. Anyway. Enough about Elon Musk. But Twitter. But whether or not he's doing that with Twitter, if he really believes in it, and again, I don't know if he does, but if he believes in it, what he's hoping is he's going to get that for a low price. He's going to fix the model because Twitter has, I think Twitter has model problems. You scroll through. I mean, you scroll through, you get the ads, that you have. I don't know if Twitter's monetizing influencers or not, or whether or not influencers sort of do their own thing and they don't share with Twitter. But I don't know the answer to that question. I'm sure other travelers do. But again, what he's trying to do is he's going to try to fix that model so that when Twitter goes public again, he'll get a much bigger valuation and he'll gain on that. So that's what he's got to be thinking. If he actually believes in the
Twitter, I want to see if he goes through with it.
Yeah, you know what? I think Elon Musk is all about Elon Musk. And he's brilliant. He's brilliant, but again, he's pulled a lot of shenanigans. Yeah.
Hey, that's the higher tier, guys. Hey, Aaron, I'm not going to ask no more questions because if I ask you, we're going to keep going. I'm waving the white flag. I'm waving the white flag. Rick, wrap it up,
Aaron, man. This has been beautiful, man. I love the conversation, man. I love your perspective, man. Thank you so much for coming and just sharing with us today, man. This has been an amazing time. And to all of our travelers out there, I want to give them an opportunity. Maybe they're in a situation where they can use your services, your company services. Could you share with them where they can reach out to you, find more about you, and if they're in the right situation, to go ahead and connect with you?
Yeah, website's always great. WRPwealth.com. You can book an appointment. I'll talk to anyone. So if you have questions, I'm happy to chat. We have a tax firm in house, so even if you're just looking for tax help, I can always direct you there. And then we have our Twitter handle, WRP Advisory, and we're on Facebook, of course. So all that good stuff.
Love it. Go ahead, Marla. Yes, no.
No, this is for tax question. Is it true that if you use your LLC, Rick, I'm coming. If this is going to benefit us, so it's free tax. If you have your LLC and then you file it as an S corp, and instead of taking payment from the S corp as an employee, that you can leave your money in that S corp and not take and not pay taxes for it until you start using those funds?
Generally not. What happens is your S corp's a flow-through entity. Whatever happens on your S corp gets put onto a K1. It's gonna end up on your tax return, one way or another.
Gotcha.
The S corp, the benefit of an S corp is actually when you do pay yourself, because what happens is if you're making a profit, and again in real estate it's kind of difficult because you have the depreciation which just shelters a lot of the income. But if you're getting to that point where you're making the profit, and you can pay yourself a small salary, and then have the rest be business income, which is not subject to FICA or Medicare. That's where the S corp really becomes a little more powerful.
All right.
With travelers, on that note, we will see you next week at the same time on a Success Journey show. Everyone, have a good one. Peace.
One love.
You've been listening to The Success Journey Show, where your dreams, drive, determination, and diligence are the foundation to success. For more information, check out thesuccessjourneyshow.com. The Journey Squad is here helping you to your destination.